Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So at the beginning of the year, I was doing super well with posting like once a week, and I've been gone for probably about a month. So I'm sorry about that. I've just been super busy. If you watched my 2020 goals video, one of my goals was to get a job, and I did do that. So I've been working quite a bit. I take a shift every day, sometimes 3 hours, sometimes 10.5 hours. So it's been busy. But it's about to get a lot less crazy because, as you all I'm sure know by now, the coronavirus is wild, and my school as well as my work is shutting down until April 6th, starting tomorrow. Tomorrow's my last day of work. So that being said, this is my senior year, and although we're only shut down till April 6th right now, a lot of other schools have already decided that they're just going to shut down for the remainder of the school year. And even if we don't, by the time we get back, it's pretty much over anyways. So I have been grieving in a way for the past couple days just because college is over for me now, and this is not at all the way I expected it to end. This is not something I thought would ever happen at all, and so I kind of like went for spring break thinking I'll come back. I've got like a month and a half left with my friends, and then things are going to get sad and I'm going to have to move back home and all of those things. However, spring break, right in the middle of it, we get the news that this is it. So as part of that grieving process, I guess, I thought it would be a good time because this channel, I want it to be glorifying to God anyways, and I want it to be very personal. So I figured now would be a good time for me to share my testimony about college specifically. Maybe I can do a full testimony video one day, but just like what God has done in my life through college as a way of me kind of like saying my final goodbyes, if you will. So I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I haven't been crying like a lot. So I just put on makeup. It's literally 6:50 in the evening, and I literally just put on makeup like 10 minutes before this because there was no point throughout the day because I was going to cry it off. So I'm going to try to hold strong through this. But anyways, this has been a long enough intro, so I want to go ahead and get on to this. So whenever I was looking for colleges, there is a college really, really close to where I live, like probably 30, 40 minutes. And a lot of my friends went there. I know a lot of people from around my area went there. Shoot, where is that? I need to turn that off. Anyways, a lot of people from where I'm from went to that particular school. It's UAB, University of Alabama at Birmingham. And so all my life, that was kind of my plan. Like, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to go to UAB for college, I'm going to be a nurse, like all of these things. UAB is very, very good as far as medical college because it's at a hospital. So that was the plan all along. You can even look, there's like an article in the newspaper for a scholarship program I did, and it was like, Amy's future plans are to go to UAB and to be a nurse. Well, it turns out that I didn't even apply to UAB. That wasn't even a thing during my senior year anymore. God just really changed those plans. So kind of how that happened, I briefly mentioned the scholarship program I was in. If you're familiar with Distinguished Young Women, it is not a pageant. I hate when people say it's a pageant, but it's like you do talent, you do a fitness competition, you have like a nice dress you wear, but it's like a knee-length dress, and you do like an onstage question and an interview. Well, I won that for my county, and if you win that, that opens up some scholarships for you. And so I got about $2,500 from that program, but then also I found out that Troy, where I'm at now for college, also had kind of an affiliation with that program, and you could get a full tuition scholarship with a 28 ACT score. So I remember like knowing about that, but I still wasn't really looking into it. And I remember one day, and I don't even know if she knows this, but I heard my mom, because like we had briefly talked about it, my mom and she told somebody, she's like, yeah, Amy's looking at UAB. And I kind of in my head thought, Amy's looking at Troy. And in my head I was like, I'm not sure that I am. But anyways, I went on and I kind of researched it and I was like, okay, yeah, I think this is a go. And so I really started pursuing Troy hardcore. Well, when my ACT score came back, I was 1 point shy of what I needed for that full tuition scholarship. And with it being a college that was far away and I wasn't going to be able to live at home, we were also looking at having to pay housing costs and paying for meal plans. So I kind of knew that for my family, we're not rich. We would not be able to afford for me to go to a school where I didn't have a scholarship. So I kind of just thought that was it. I was done. I was going to have to go to UAB because that was the last time I could take the ACT. But I came on a tour to Troy anyways, and I had already been on one, and kind of that was when I made up my mind that I wanted to come. And I ended up leaving early because I was kind of like, this is a tour again. Like, I don't know why I need this. And this man, and I still honestly don't know his official title. I've not seen him a single time since I've been in Troy. So that is what makes me know this is a miracle. I was walking and he was like, where are you going? You going home? And I was like, yeah, I've already been on tour. Don't think I'm going to be able to come here because my ACT score, I'm 1 point shy of what I need. And he said, email me. I got you. So I emailed him and I was like, I don't really know what's going to happen. I got a letter in the mail a few weeks later offering me the full tuition scholarship. And guys, I told my family and they cried and we talked about how that was literally a miracle, the right place at the right time. We were literally leaving somewhere that we were supposed to be early just because I was giving up on it. So that was a huge, huge God thing, huge answered prayer. So everything throughout my senior year just continued to point to Troy. And so I finally came to Troy, and I used to struggle with separation anxiety very, very bad. And all of a sudden when I came to college, like, it had not been a thing for years, like since middle school. When I came to college, as soon as like it was time for my parents to leave, just panic. And I remember just like crying and not wanting them to go. And it was just really hard. And I kind of realized like I just chose a college that's far from home. I mean, it's 2.5 hours, but like I know people have it worse, but for me that was a little hot. And I was like, I have no one really. Like, I know like 2 people from my school here, but we weren't like super close. So what do I do now? Well, thankfully, I had heard through a couple people about a ministry called the Baptist Campus Ministries, or the BCM. And so on my second night in Troy, I put on a brave face. And I remember texting one lady that I love and adore, Lori Blackwell, if you're watching. And I just asked her to pray for me and that I was going to go to try to meet people and to like make some connections. So I went to the BCM and I ended up finding a girl that lived on my hallway in my dorm 2 doors down, or 2 or 3. And we got to be really good friends, and that was a huge answered prayer. So that just kind of like continually confirmed that God was in this. And so as the year went on, it got really, really hard, and I was just struggling with being away from home for the first time, especially away from my twin. And I remember getting on my knees and just praying like, God, I am so lonely and I don't know what to do. And I felt like as I was literally laying on the floor just like bawling and tears just like coming down my face, I felt like God was saying, good. Well, now I have you where I want you. And that was so confusing to me. I'm like, hello, I'm telling you I'm lonely. Like, what are we going to do about this? But through that experience, I really learned what it means for God to be all you have and to be satisfied in Him alone. Because even though I did have like a couple friends that I had like started to make, it was Him and only Him that got me through that year. So I ended up going home like every single weekend. I think total, the entire freshman year, I only stayed in Troy 5 weekends. So that tells you I went home a lot. So when spring break was coming around, it was a big leap of faith for me to go on a disaster relief mission trip through the BCM. So there had recently been a hurricane in South Carolina, so we decided that during spring break we were going to go and do some cleanups, work on some houses, and I decided I was going to go. And the night before we were leaving, the separation anxiety just hit me again. And I remember sitting on the floor crying over my suitcase, texting my parents that I didn't want to go, and they told me, like, if you want to come home, you can. It's going to be okay. But I was like, you know what? No, I need to go. And it didn't take me long to realize why God had brought me there. So, I went on I just said that. I went on the spring break mission trip. And I remember before that, two of our family friends, Mona and Steve, I call them Aunt Mona and Uncle Steve, they had come and taken me to dinner because they knew I was struggling. And they asked me, what's it going to take for you to stay in Troy? Because at this point, I was looking for every option to move. I was looking at community colleges. I was looking at going to school with my sister, and nothing was working. And I literally told them it would take an act of God. That's where spring break comes in, so move back. I just got ahead of myself for a minute. But when I went on spring break, this guy named Steve Turner, and if you know Steve Turner, you know why I'm smiling right now because he's amazing. He works for the North American Mission Board. He came to our disaster relief trip, and he was telling us about this opportunity called GenSend, which is short for Generation Send. And basically, it's where you are immersed in a big city. So there are like several big cities that they cover, including like San Diego, Boston, Phoenix, New York City, Atlanta, just like some very big cities within the US, and you are kind of like paired up with a church planter and you work with them for 6 weeks during your summer. Well, as I've said, me and my separation anxiety said that's going to be a no. And I was trying my hardest to ignore it. Actually, my GenSend application video is on this channel, so if you want to find it. But anyways, so I was sitting there and I was hearing him talk about it, and I was like, no God, no way, not me. I could not be away from my family for 6 weeks. I will panic. I will go insane. But God continued to pursue me that night, and it became more and more evident as the night went on. Everything that the pastor spoke to us about that night, because we'd have like a little worship session every night, everything pointed to, I need to go on GenSend. And I remember during the sermon, and I have witnesses for this. You can ask my friend Beth. I literally like slammed my notebook closed and like put it aside because I was upset. I didn't want to go. That wasn't an option for me. That wasn't my plan. But I knew God wanted me to go. And when God calls, you can't say no. So I actually went back to our room. Our room was literally, we just all stayed in this big gym, and everybody had a taped off square of where you could put your stuff. So literally in the middle of my tape, I like grab my stuff and I go sit in the hallway, and I call my sister. I'm like, so I'm doing this thing called GenSend this summer. And I applied that night because I knew this was God. And I ended up telling my parents, like, you know, I know this has to be God because you know good and well I wouldn't choose to be away for 6 weeks by myself. And I'm trying to be respectful, but I'm not asking you if I can go. I'm telling you that I'm going to go because God's calling is higher than anything else. And you can't, like, you're not going to be able to stop me. So I went on that. And through that summer in New York City, by the way, I kind of skipped that. You like pick your top 3 cities, and I picked New York first, and I got placed in the New York team. So I was in New York City for 6 weeks, summer 2017, working with a church plant called Mosaic Baptist Church. And basically I was an intern. I did a lot of like street evangelism, cleaning up parks, going to different things, and doing children's ministry on Sunday mornings. So that kind of solidified in high school, which that's a whole different story for the whole life testimony, but I kind of started feeling called to children's ministry. So I got to do a lot of children's ministry on Sunday mornings. And I'm losing my train of thought. It also taught me to have a heart for the Church of the U.S. because that is where I live. And I've always loved missions, and I've always, well, I won't say always, but since like young middle school, have told my sister, at least, I don't know if I ever said it to my parents, like, oh, I'm going to move to Africa one day. And it kind of started out as a joke, and then I was like, no, I'm serious, I think. Like, I really feel like this is what God is telling me. But anyways, I really wanted to go to Africa that summer, but then GenSend jumped in, so it taught me that first I need to have a heart for where I'm at. So I really learned that summer. So came back from, I know I'm talking a lot about summer, but this is about college. So came back to school for my sophomore year, I'm trying to keep this in order. I need to look at this more. when I came back from New York, no, from spring break, sorry, the disaster relief where I applied for New York, I immediately signed a lease, 2 days later, even though I had been really trying to leave. I just knew God was telling me to stay in Troy. So I did that, stayed in Troy, did the whole summer thing, came back, and then sophomore year, God really provided in big ways. I've been praying for really good friendships. Like I said, I had a few from the year before, but I just needed more friends, because I believe that different friends bring different things to your life, so it's not good just to have one or two friends. I do not have the coronavirus, I have allergies. But I believe that you need several friends, one friend to be, I don't know, everybody brings something new to the table. Anyway, so I made a lot of really good friends that year, and actually November of my sophomore year, I decided to run for president of the BCM, the Baptist Campus Ministries. I was elected, and into that I went, and that really, really helped me thrive. And while I was president, I actually got to plan a spring break trip back to the church that I had worked at that summer in New York. So we went to New York for spring break, got to work with my same pastor, his same family, the same people I was with. That was incredible. Oh my gosh, I got ahead of myself again. So the week before we went to spring break, I had really been man, I want to do Ginseng again. I really feel like this is what God is telling me to do. And the guy who mobilizes for Ginseng was at the BCM for a worship service. And I was telling him about it, and he was like, well, actually, I really need people to go internationally this summer. And I was like, I think I could. And so I looked on their international trips, and I found this trip that was children's ministry in Kenya, which was Africa and children's ministry, two of the things, and missions, three of the things that I'm super passionate about and that God has put on my heart for a long time. So I was like, this trip is perfect for me. But it was scary, and again, the separation anxiety was a little bit I don't know about that. But when I was in New York, we read from, let me look at it. I'm pretty sure it's Psalm 90, where it talks about number our days so we can gain a heart of wisdom. Psalm 90, verse 12. Teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And whenever we were talking about numbering our days, for some reason it hit me really hard. I am not here forever. And while I am here, I want to be used big time by God, and I want Him to have my whole heart, my whole life. And so I wrote down in my Bible, I should show you guys a picture of it. It says, don't waste your life, kid. Because I kind of felt like at that point I was. So that night, as we were walking back to our hotel, my campus minister was like, are you going to Kenya this summer? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, the deadline is tomorrow. And all of a sudden, Psalm 90 verse 12 hits me. Teach me to number my days. And I was like, you know what? I only have these days for so long. I'm going to do it. So again, Amy and her have to do things then and there applied that night. And got accepted to Kenya by the time spring break was over. Had to tell my parents, again, sorry, not asking you, telling you God is sending me to Kenya. Woo, that was a big one. But then, so I finished out the rest of the year as president, just doing all that stuff. That was a huge blessing. God was really helping me to thrive that year. So Kenya was kind of a combination of the three things that I'm super passionate about. And so I went to Kenya, and that was an incredible summer. There was one specific day while I was there that I did a prayer walk, and that day I'm not going to say will forever be, because I pray that God reveals Himself in even bigger ways than that, but to this point in my life is the most spiritually significant day that I've ever lived. I felt like God was literally walking right beside me and speaking directly to my face. His voice could not have been more clear that day. So I came back with kind of that mindset, we're going to prayer walk through this junior year, God is going to be there, this is what we're going to do. So finished up my time as president. I was kind of doing a lot. Oh, a huge thing junior year, so halfway through college, I changed my major. From nursing, I had already been accepted into nursing school, and I was just kind of thinking like the whole reason I did nursing was to use it for missions one day anyways, but I really want to go into something where I feel more equipped for ministry. So I decided to change my major to communications to kind of learn that like relating to people, doing media, advertising, that kind of stuff in the communications realm for the purpose of doing media ministry. Not media ministry maybe. Anyways, so yeah, that was huge. That was super hard, because that was a big step. But that year I really thrived. I had never been as happy in college as I was that year, because I finally had a group of people I loved, a group of people who loved me, a major I loved, a place in ministry I loved, a place somewhere else that I had a heart for. And so it was amazing. I decided, okay, well, first of all, I got to start a position as a worship chair at the BCM after my term as president came to a close. And so I did that for a year. And then I went back to Kenya. So this is my third summer in college, summer 2018, second summer in Kenya. And so this past summer, right before senior year, that was really hard. I was expecting these huge, like the year before, God had done like huge things, like big, big things. And I was expecting him to do the same thing. And instead, he taught me more about the small things, about how important discipleship is, about how important ongoing ministry is. Instead of like seeing these like professed atheists come to Christ, it's like, everybody here already knows about Jesus, but what else are you going to teach them? Just kind of those things. And it was hard, and I had a lot of personal struggles as well, but God was really good. So senior year has been really good, except for the fact that I've used being a senior and being busy as an excuse to spend a lot of time alone. And now that we are here where it's possibly over before I realized it would be, that is the only regret that I have, is not spending more time with people. I don't regret any of the tests I didn't study for, even if I didn't do well. I don't regret like not going to like huge parties or events. I don't regret not going to all the sporting events. I regret not spending time with people, not pouring into people, things like that. So there's a couple things that I want to like say as this wraps up is college can be a huge turning point in your life, and you can encounter God in a huge way in college. But you have to be open. You have to be able to say yes, even when it's hard, even when those fears and anxieties are in the way. And just let him work, even when it doesn't make sense, because it is nothing but a miracle that I stayed in Troy, that I ever got to come to Troy in the first place, that me, someone who struggles with separation anxiety, or used to, is now spending her summers 8,000 miles away from home for 12 weeks at a time. Like, these are only possible through the grace and the power of God. And God can use those things to mold you and shape you. And so something that I saw today as I was kind of mopey and scrolling Instagram was it happens to be one of my favorite passages. And when I was in high school, I actually got to speak to my youth group on this passage, Luke 10. And this is actually the story of Mary and Martha. And let me just read it to you. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said, but Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. So not only does this apply now, but this applies throughout all of college. If you're in the middle of college, if you haven't gone to college yet, even if you have gone to college already, or you're not going to college, this is life. We always have the option to decide what we're going to do with our time, what we're going to do with our life. And we can be worried and upset about many things. I can be worried and upset about what the coronavirus has taken from me. Or I can choose to sit at the feet of Jesus, to rest in Him, to not get busy and upset about whatever's going on in life, and to just take in His Word. And that is the difference between a successful college career or life and an unsuccessful one. There is nothing more important than this right here. And this right here is the only thing that got me through college. And this will be the only thing that continues to get me through my life. And even though I am sad that this is probably over, I'm super thankful for all the things that God gave me during this time. So with that being said, this is it. This is goodbye. Hopefully not. Hopefully we will come back for our last couple weeks. But yeah. So thank you for watching. Thank you for hearing me out. I am praying for all of you as the coronavirus is still here and attacking us. I'm praying for healing, and I'm praying that while we are in this time of isolation, we use it wisely, and we use it to sit at the feet of the Lord and let Him pour into us. So, thank you for watching. I'll be back soon with a couple more videos. Spring break vlog is probably next. That was like last week. So don't be like, wow, she went out in her quarantine. Okay. No. Bye, friends. Thank you for watching.